Crawford, Steph Curry and the Warriors once down 17 in the second, facing the Timberwolves, looking to avoid back-to-back losses. 10 seconds left, down one. Curry, no. Klay Thompson and Brandon Rush tied up down low. A jump ball would be called with 0.6 of a second left, but that would not be enough time for the Warriors. Take another look at another miss for Curry. 0 for 5 this season on potential go-ahead field goal attempts in the final 10 seconds. Timberwolves get the win. Wow. Thanks for waking up with us. This is SportsCenter. We are live. That is Jay Crawford. I am Linda Cohn. And as you just witnessed, the Warriors have now lost back-to-back games for the second time in 2 weeks. The latest loss resulting in off-the-court controversy.
Yeah, that's right. So that was last night's story, Linda. Tonight's story for the much-anticipated Warriors-Spurs matchup in San Antonio is rest. Golden State coach Steve Kerr on his plan for the 1-2 West showdown tonight. Listen.
It's 100% health. I've been conferring with the training staff every day on this trip, and I ultimately deferred to Chelsea and Mike Err and Drew Yoder. The biggest thing was, what I asked them was what's the best game that we can benefit from. Those four guys are high minutes guys, and they said no doubt it's San Antonio because we're going to get in at 3 a.m. Those guys are all playing big minutes, and this will give them 3 days before our home game, and then we'll have a whole week at home next week and a chance to get recharged. So it's my call, and it's the right thing to do in terms of the way the season is playing out and the way the minutes have gone and KD's injury. It's the right thing to do, so we're doing it.
All right, this is a brutal part of the schedule for the Warriors, and this might take you inside of what Steve's thinking here. Look, it's an L for the fans. Make no mistake about it. We were looking forward to this. But, he's got to manage his season the way he sees fit. This is their 8th game. San Antonio will be their 8th game in 8 cities over 13 days. The team will travel nearly 11,000 miles over that stretch, and the travel may be taking its toll on Golden State Stars. Over the first 7 games, Steph Curry, over the last 7 games, Steph Curry is shooting under 25% from three-point range. He is 16 of his last 75 from distance, and his splash brother, Klay Thompson, hasn't been much better, just 28% from distance. Andre Iguodala, a little surprised last night to find out that he and some of the other Warrior stars would be taking tonight off.
I mean, it's coach's decision. He's done it before. It's obviously a different situation with, the San Antonio and whatnot. But, we've had a tough schedule, and he made that decision. And even if we tried to suit up tomorrow, he's not going to play us. So it is what it is.
The schedule's been brutal. He's sent us east for 5-6 games, back home for 1 day. My daughter said to me, she said, "Papa, you was here for 2 days. Where you going?" I felt horrible, but that's the business we're in, I guess. Now we're gonna fly 3 hours tonight and go play again in 16 hours or 20 hours or something. That can't be healthy for the human body.
We taking tomorrow?
You still?
No clue. Do what Master say.
Wow. All right. So Curry, Thompson, Green, Iguodala, all sitting out tonight. Our Warriors beat reporter Chris Haynes was in the Golden State locker room after the loss, which was the 4th in the last 6 games for these Warriors. He joins us now on SportsCenter. Chris, good morning to you. All right, that clip where Iguodala says, do what the master wants, it certainly got everyone's attention. I know you spoke to Iggy about it. What was he saying?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure. I wanted to clarify, because obviously social media went crazy after that video surfaced. And he made it clear to me that in no way, shape, or form was he referring to Steve Kerr in that master comment. Now, just to kind of paint the scenery going into that locker room after the game, everybody, I'll say everybody, but most of the players were complaining about the officiating. You know, they were looking on their phones, looking at certain plays that they felt unfairly went against them, and they were just pissed. And they were kind of mad about, I guess, how some of the officials probably were talking to them and some of their explanations. And so I'm just trying to plant a little scenery of how we got to that point. Then, you know, obviously I went to Iguodala and asked him a general question about the game. What led to this outcome? And, you know, he first started off with saying, well, y'all want a dumb, you know, answer. I'm going to give y'all a dumb answer. And so that kind of set the scene for, like, the bizarre post-game coverage we had last night. That comment kind of made a lot of, you know, people uneasy. And then ultimately, you know, I asked him about the rest, and that's when you had the soundbite there. So it was just a bizarre scene, but most of the players were frustrated by the officiating, and I think that kind of spilled over.
All right, so angry about the loss, disappointed in the officiating, and Iggy making sure that he lets everyone know, look, the master comment was not intended to his head coach, Steve Kerr. And then you touched on more of the postgame. Iguodala on 3 different occasions during his postgame interview using the N-word. Here's part of that sound. Listen.
Anything else? No. What would dumb say? Just play harder. Figure it out. Change gonna come. Ain't that what we should say? Change gonna come.
All right, so Chris, clearly Iggy's trying to send a message to someone. He uses the N-word 3 times in his post-game comments. Who is his message targeted to? What's going on here?
I would say that to try to give you an answer as best as I can, Iggy is known for, you know, people that cover Iggy who have come in contact with him. Iggy is known for making people feel awkward. You know, he does those things. Ramona Shelburne, you know, she has a lot of stories about Andre Iguodala and just how he does that. And it's like if you can get past that discomfort level, you know, he's all yours. He's all talking. But last night, look, I can't. There's no rationale for it. Obviously, I think they believe that they were treated unfairly by the officiating, whether that was the calls or whether that was, you know, how the officials were talking to them, communicate with them. And then, like I said, it clearly spilled over into the locker room. So I think, you know, you connect the dots, but obviously he wanted to make it clear that he was not talking with Steve Kerr. And he actually tweeted at me last night, because I tweeted out that, you know, this was not referring to Steve Kerr, and he tweets out at me, #ForTheCulture. So that's Iggy being Iggy, man. It's pretty much bizarre. I wrote about it. It was a bizarre scene last night. Nobody was talking really about the game last night. It was about Iggy's and Draymond's comments afterwards.
Chris, very quickly here, and maybe this is me reading between the lines, but is there some anger towards the league because of this schedule? I mean, all teams have to go through this at some point. Is that perhaps what this is about?
Well, it's a lot of it. I think it's the schedule, the fact that they're struggling without KD. You know, obviously the loss Minnesota last night. You know, there's a ton of things going on with this team. There's a bunch of different dynamics behind the scenes that you can point at and say, hey, man, you know, that's part of it as well. So, like I said, I think and then the fact that they're resting against San Antonio on a primetime game, I'm pretty sure the players, you know, really didn't want to do that. Right, they understand. Sure. So there's a whole bunch of things that you could point to.
All right. Chris, thank you very much. We appreciate it. By the way, the Warriors now in danger of losing their 3rd straight game tonight. That's significant because, Linda, Golden State hasn't dropped 3 in a row since 2013. That's a string of 297 straight games without a 3-game losing streak. That is an NBA record.
And I'm sure Steve Kerr cares very little. Let's welcome in NBA analyst Brad Daugherty. He is with me right now. We got a lot to get to here because this is just, I have myself shaking my head. I cannot believe this. Let's start with Andre Iguodala's choice of words. What's your reaction, Brad Daugherty?
Well, I think he was frustrated, obviously. This has been a tough couple of weeks for this basketball team. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of losses that they didn't see happening. They played 7 games in 8 nights, been on the road quite a bit. So I just think it's frustration mounting. They had a game last night that, in their opinion, was poorly officiated. So that just kind of pushes them over the top. So I'm not looking too much into it past frustration.
All right. So it looks like, kind of Jay alluded to this. Is this Steve Kerr sending a message to Adam Silver in the NBA and say, listen, we're not going to take this moving forward with the schedule. You just referenced how many games and how many nights.
Yeah.
They lose a star player. Everyone goes through this. This isn't making them look good. What is your reaction? You played the game, but to sit 4 star players for a big regular season conference game tonight, I don't care if the game was played on Mars and it happens to be on national TV. That just doesn't seem to make sense for an NBA fan. You're asking an NBA fan to not care as well.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. The thing I would do and the thing I would look at is I think you do have to get Steph Curry to the playoffs healthy. So I would try to figure out, if I was Steve Kerr, and I'm not, he's got to do what he has to do for his team, but I would try to figure out how to get Steph Curry some rest throughout these next few games. But the rest of the guys, you got to play. You got to play. And already you're going to be missing Kawhi Leonard on the other side, who's in concussion protocol. So that's a legitimate reason. So, yeah, this is a huge game, and the fans really want to see this. And I know the travel is a lot, but, back in the mid-'80s, we do it on commercial airlines. We did the same thing. So the travel is always tough. But what teams have figured out over the last couple of decades in this game is that if you can get to the playoffs healthy, one way or not, if you can take this heat during the regular season by resting people, you have a better chance to get to that title, Linda. I know it doesn't seem fair for the fans, but you're trying to win a championship.
I'll tell you, I get resting one of his stars, but not 4.
I think Steph's the guy.
Not 4. I mean, that's just crazy. All right, much more.
Not to be outdone by himself, Iggy also doubled down on controversial comments. He was asked why the Warriors lost the game, eliciting this response.
Anything else?
No.
What would Dunn say? Just play harder. Figure it out. Change gonna come. Ain't that what we should say? Change gonna come.
Full disclosure, he said the N-word 3 times. We just showed you the one time he said it. Stephen A. Smith is here with us on SportsCenter. All right, Stephen A., what do you make of Iggy's language that he used to express his recent frustration with that team?
Well, first of all, I think it comes across as incredibly frustrating, obviously so, and regardless of what he says, I think it's clear that he was taking a shot at Steve Kerr, regardless of how much he moonwalked and backtracked. I mean, nobody with sense is going to believe that comment wasn't directed towards Steve Kerr. Now, Steve Kerr obviously can be a very fiery coach at times, but he's very, very well respected and well liked throughout the league by a lot of his contemporaries at times, whether it would be with Draymond Green in the past or whatever the case may be. Certainly he's rubbed a couple of players the wrong way. What head coach hasn't? It's no big deal there. But when you take into account what Andre Iguodala had to say, keep in mind this dude is a guy that used to play at the University of Arizona, that was in Philadelphia from 2004 to 2012 at a time when I was writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer and I covered him. Yes, he does joke a lot. That is absolutely undeniable, as Chris Haynes pointed out. But Andre Iguodala is a really decent dude, very, very smart, by the way, and knows what he's doing a lot of times. He's not somebody that makes ill-advised or irresponsible comments or anything of that nature. If he says something like that, he uses racial epithets or whatever the case may be, he's not just joking. He was trying to make a point. Whatever that point is remains to be seen, but there is no question in my mind that was a shot at Steve Kerr, because there's no way on earth that the intelligent, wise Andre Iguodala, who has been in the National Basketball Association now for more than a decade, wouldn't know how such comments on camera with microphones and cameras rolling would not know what kind of residue that would leave behind. There's no way that he just said it and he didn't have any clue as to what he was saying or what he was doing. That's not Andre Iguodala. No way on earth. It was a shot at Steve Kerr.
So what's the frustration there then? Is this just symptomatic of a team that is losing for all intents and purposes on a slide by Warriors terms anyway? I mean, why take a shot at Kerr?
Well, first of all, it's not just about Kerr, and I don't mean to. I'm sorry that I came across that way. Not just about Kerr. It could also be aimed at the league, because the schedule is something that they have a problem with. They have a problem with these back-to-backs. They have a problem with the number of games that they're playing on the road with minimal rest, as Draymond Green was pointing out. They have a problem with the fact that they have to capitulate to the demands of a team or a league. These are individuals that are getting paid exorbitant dollars. What people have to recognize is that when you're getting paid that much money, it elevates the level of freedom that you believe that you have, because in the end, are you going to have your salary, your guaranteed dollars snatched from you? No. So with that wealth comes a level of freedom, and to be quite honest with you, at times an absence of decorum, this need to be politically correct all the time. In the moment, after a game, particularly after a latest loss, with the frustration brewing, sometimes that's when you're at your most authentic. You're talking to a guy that's covered the NBA for more than 20 years. I'm in locker rooms all the time. I've been covering this league for more than 2 decades. When you get a raw sense of emotion from guys when you speak to them immediately after the game, which is why teams usually in the league usually forces you to wait. That scheduling, the referees on the court, some of the bad calls that were aimed in their direction, certainly that plays a role in it as well. But again, we're talking about Andre Iguodala, the highly intelligent Andre Iguodala. And to say things like he just said, and to just leave it out there knowing that the potential was there for it to be interpreted as a shot towards Steve Kerr, there is no way on earth that Andre Iguodala did not know that. He is a highly intelligent dude. He is not stupid, and he is not irresponsible. Think about it. He's been in the league since 2004. When has Andre Iguodala ever gotten in any trouble? When has he ever been known for making? He doesn't. This dude is an intelligent guy. He knew what he was doing.
And look, thankfully, at least on our end, if he had towed the company line, he certainly wouldn't be leading our show today. So he spoke his mind, and we're talking about it. Stephen A. Smith with the latest on what's happening with the Warriors who take on the Spurs tonight in San Antonio. Thanks, Stephen A.
Thank you.
Minnesota had led by 12. And what a finish by Timberwolves. That's a big man with a 180 reverse layup.
Shabazz Muhammad didn't have numbers. Doesn't matter. He'll take it, make it. A one-man fast break. And the Timberwolves hold on to win it over the Golden State Warriors. A signature win for the Wolves.
It's the right thing to do, so we're doing it.
All right, for more on whether it's the right thing to do, let's bring in Mark Spears from the Undefeated. By their standards, they're bleeding, Mark. 4 losses in their last 6 games. I know that you follow the Warriors really closely, but what are you hearing about Kerr's decision to sit guys when, let's be honest, it's a pretty critical game for the Western Conference tonight?
Well, it was a decision that was made prior to this game. Keep in mind, this is the 8th of on a 7 or 8 game road trip. They just went home real quick in the middle. These guys are really, really tired. You could see it. I mean, there's no excuse. Everybody definitely has tough schedules like this. But, you know, I agree with Steve Kerr's move. He conferred with his coaching staff, his medical staff. And last year we beat him up for playing these guys too much when they won 73 games. So I'm not going to beat him up now when he wants to rest these guys and get them ready. Probably, you got to think long term with it. And I know it's a big game, but I'd rather them be healthy down the line than worry about tonight.
And then it allows us the opportunity to say, what's the biggest difference between the number 1 and number 2 seed? But that's not what I'm going to ask you. I want to ask you about the headlines that Andre Iguodala made after some strong language last night when he was asked about Kerr's decision and officials' calls late in the game. Here's what he said.
Anything else?
No.
What would that say? Just play harder. Figure it out. Change gonna come. Ain't that what we should say?
Yeah.
Change gonna come.
Was it planned that you guys would take tomorrow? You would come in and take tomorrow off, the game off. Was that what you planned?
We taking tomorrow?
You, Steph, Dre, Clay.
No clue. Do what Master say.
All right. So the first bit of sound that you heard was him responding to why they lost. He dropped the N-word 3 times, and then he referred to Kerr, at least what it looked like, as a master. But now he has kind of explained himself, so that's not what he was talking about. How much do you believe that his comments are just coming from a sheer place of frustration with this team right now?
Well, perhaps the master comment is pointed at the NBA for having them do such a crazy road trip. But if it is pointed at Steve Kerr, it's really, really odd. Steve Kerr is about as woke as an NBA coach as you could find. He said more in favor of black people from social issue standpoint over the last year than any black coach in sports. So I don't know if a guy making $110 million over the course of his NBA career should call anybody a master. I'm sure he could get up, walk out, and go do something else. I'm sure a lot of America would agree with that too. But Iguodala makes terse comments here and there, whether it's socially or just funny. Not totally surprised he said something odd like that, but Steve Kerr is probably the last person I would call, well, maybe not the last person, but he'd be one of the last people I would call master as far as white males are concerned.
Yeah, again, he came back and said, that was an inside joke. I wasn't referring to Steve Kerr as a master. That's Mark
But maybe it's Adam Silver. Is he talking about Adam Silver? I don't know.
It's rhetorical. I can't
Iggy.
answer exactly. We'll have to ask Iggy. Yeah, there'll be some cameras I hear at the game tonight. We'll see if that topic comes up. Mark Spears giving us some perspective on the Warriors side, but Eves, you're going to get us some perspective on the other side of this matchup tonight.
Yeah, El, because one of their best stars will not be playing as well. Kawhi Leonard took a shot to the face in Thursday's loss to the Thunder. Now he's in the concussion protocol mandated by the league. He will not be on the court tonight when they take on those Warriors without all their stars. So let's bring in Spurs ESPN reporter Michael C. Wright. All right, Michael, get us up to date on not only Kawhi's condition overall, but in terms of what he has to go through in this protocol in order before he can play again.
Well, first off, let me say we're a little less controversial around here, right here in the San Antonio Spurs facility.
True.
But with Kawhi, though, he's got to go through a really rigorous set of things before he's able to get back on the court. First off, he's got to be symptom-free for 24 hours, and then he can get into that return to participation protocol. And that thing it involves increasing levels of strenuous activity. So first off, he'll ride a bike, then he'll go to jogging from there, and then from there he goes to agility drills, and then finally non-contact team drills. And once he does all that, he'll be good to go. But the thing is that at any point in that process, if he suffers any kind of concussion symptoms, he's got to go back to the part in the process of where he was symptom-free, basically. So this could be a long thing. I mean, if you remember back to Al Horford back in November, the guy gets a concussion, he tries to come back, and he ends up missing 3 weeks because the symptoms come back. And you have to realize that every individual is different. You know, what happened with Al Horford might not happen that way with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he could come back as soon as next week, but we just don't know. And if you guys know anything about the Spurs, you know they're always on the cutting edge of everything, whether it's recovery, training, all that stuff. So what they'll do is make sure that they kind of just handle every aspect the way they need to and get Kawhi Leonard on the court when he's ready.
Yeah, concussion test is not like the test we had in school, Michael. It's not just collective grade. You got to pass each phase before moving on to the next one. If not, you got to start over. And
can't shake it off.
No, you can't shake it off. So let me ask you this, though. With no Kawhi for San Antonio and none of the 4 stars for Golden State, how is San Antonio approaching this game tonight, especially considering what's on the line?
Well, man, it's a tough one, man, because look, I talked to the Spurs on Thursday. We haven't had any availability since then. But after the Oklahoma City game, they said, hey, we're right within grasp of that number 1 seed. And do we want it? Absolutely we want it. We want it. But at the same time, the key, the goal right now is to go into the playoffs playing your best basketball and being as healthy as you can be. So, yes, they want it. But at the same time, don't be surprised if Greg Popovich decides to rest a guy or two tonight. I mean, look at Tony Parker. Right now, Tony Parker is questionable. He's got some back stiffness. So there's a good chance that he might not play tonight. And if that happens, the reserves get some extra time and, they get a chance to show that they can help this team in the playoffs.
His family named him Michael C. Wright, but his middle name should be Benjamin because Michael B. Wright here on SportsCenter all the time. Appreciate the time, brother.
Well, look at what we have in the Western Conference. Through last night, the Spurs, a game and a half back of the Warriors. The Warriors, it's tough to say they're in a free fall since KD's injury because they're playing so well. But Spurs making this thing tight, interesting, with more on the Western Conference playoff picture. Let's bring in First Take Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A., do either of these teams really care if they get the 1 seed?
I mean, they're well positioned, prepared exactly in terms of, they can handle road competition. They can go into hostile confines and still get the job done. But when you look at these two teams, it's not beyond the realm of comprehension that this could end up being a 7-game series. And if you take into account that it could be a 7-game series, you have to imagine and fantasize about a Game 7. Do you want that on the road or do you want that on your home court? Particularly if you're the San Antonio Spurs, you most certainly want that on your home court. Nobody wants to go to the Oracle for a Game 7, despite what we saw from LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in Game 7 last year. Those are hostile confines in Oakland, California. Make no mistake about it, particularly if Kevin Durant comes back. So if you're the San Antonio Spurs, you're chomping at the bit to take advantage of this opportunity that has been presented to you, particularly with Kawhi Leonard playing the way that he's been playing. You want to take advantage of it? Of course it means something to them.
You worried about Golden State at all right now with the way they're playing?
Hell yes. Without question. But it has nothing to do with the way that they're playing. It has everything to do with the absence of Kevin Durant, because as I've said on numerous occasions since he's gone down, what people are not realizing, it's not about, Kevin Durant is gone, and so the Golden State Warriors are still what they are, or they just lost one of the top 2 players in the world. When you think about the absence of Kevin Durant, Jay, take into account the fact that Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut, a defender on your front line, and the other is a big man rim protector, were both let go by the Golden State Warriors in the offseason last year to make room for Kevin Durant to arrive. So with Kevin Durant being gone, not only do you not have Kevin Durant, but you also don't have Harrison Barnes and you don't have Andrew Bogut. And in their place, you have Zaza Pachulia and JaVale McGee. I won't get started with that. You heard me say their names. It's good enough for you. So in the end, what it comes down to is that they're not the same team. And that means they have to strictly rely on, Draymond and Steph and Clay. And even though they're more than good enough to get to those conference finals, when you talk about Houston or San Antonio potentially waiting for them, you're going to need Kevin Durant to get out of the West.
Yeah, you miss KD the shooter and KD the rim protector. You can catch Stephen A. Moore, Stephen A. top of the hour on First Take coming up next here on ESPN. Stephen A., thank you.
We're still getting more reaction on the breaking news we just told you moments ago that LaMarcus Aldridge is out indefinitely after being diagnosed with a minor heart arrhythmia. So for reaction, we're going to bring in our Spurs ESPN reporter, Michael C. Wright. Michael, what more can you tell us about this heart issue with Aldridge?
Well, there aren't a ton of details at this point. As you guys know, the Spurs are very secretive about things, but I did talk to a source who told me that there was an episode, a minor occurrence, and that they're going to take this extremely serious because obviously with a heart condition, you have to take this really seriously. And they told me that right now, the stuff on the court is secondary. Right now, his health and his safety is of the utmost concern. And, as Greg Popovich walked away from doing his presser today, he said that, we asked, hey, is LaMarcus going to be okay? And he said, hey, I hope so. So right now there's not a ton of information, and I think that they are just in the very beginning stages of trying to figure all this out.
As we mentioned a little earlier as well, Michael, 2007 was the first time that this issue surfaced, and then he missed a practice with the Trailblazers in 2011 with the same condition. Looking big picture at this game, Kawhi Leonard also out tonight in concussion protocol. Have the Spurs elected to sit anybody else?
Yes, Tony Parker will be out too. Tony Parker is going to be out with some back stiffness, and I sort of anticipated this happening. He was listed on the injury report earlier this week as questionable, but at this point with Golden State sitting all their guys, you would think that the Spurs would do the same just as a precautionary measure. DeJounte Murray, the backup point guard who would be expected to start in Tony Parker's place, he's out tonight with a groin injury. So this is a situation where both teams will have a lot of guys out. And, I talked to Manu Ginobili here a few minutes ago, and he said that, the good thing is that we've got enough of a cushion in terms of the victories that, hey, if we have to have guys out for a few games, we can survive that because right now the Houston Rockets are the number 3 seed, and they're 7.5 games behind the San Antonio Spurs. And right now the Spurs are only a game and a half behind the Golden State Warriors. So this is a situation where they've got a little room to play with, and if they have to have some guys out for a while, they'll be okay.
It was certainly a marquee matchup that we were all looking forward to. And in the last 24 hours, things have certainly changed. The Warriors choosing to rest players. And as we just mentioned, LaMarcus Aldridge not resting, out indefinitely with a minor heart arrhythmia. Michael C. Wright with the latest there. We've got
Brad Daugherty here with us now on SportsCenter. When you were in the league, how much did you watch sports television?
Oh, a lot.
Really? Because
Absolutely.
players say they don't watch. They don't read the newspaper, they don't watch TV.
Oh, back in the day, we watched, man.
You watch?
We want to see what other teams are doing, what was going on in the world of sports. We watch. They watch.
All right, well, if people were watching us last week, you said that in order for the Warriors to have some success without Kevin Durant, that this guy named Steph Curry, two-time MVP, would have to get back to that level.
Correct.
What have you seen from him since?
I see a basketball team right now, Michael, that's very, very tired. You see it in their play. There's almost an overemphasis on effort, trying to participate at a high level every night, and it just seems like they're out of steam. They've got to get back home, get recharged, and once they do, I think they'll have an opportunity to have some success. I see tired legs when Steph shoots the basketball. The one thing I want to see in Steph Curry as a player is I want to see him being a playmaker. When he's a playmaker, it makes the team much more fluid, and the end result a lot of times is him getting a shot, running off of a screen. They just can't quite get to that. So now all it is they run down to their offense in transition, and they just look for a three-point shot. And you see a lot of missed shots because it's just like a tired basketball team.
You know, I know Steve Kerr said that it was best for them to miss this particular game tonight, but from a fan perspective, why not miss last night's game? Send those guys ahead to San Antonio. It happens in baseball all the time. They'll send a starting pitcher ahead, or they just don't even travel, because this is the game that it's not just for them. I understand, but it's for the fans.
This is a huge basketball game. And I don't agree with not starting or not playing all four of those guys.
Okay.
I think you've got to work on Steph, though. And I think that was the game plan when Kevin Durant was in the picture. Because Kevin does so many things so well, you could kind of rest Steph over these next few weeks. You get Steph Curry to the playoffs healthy, now it changes the dynamic of your basketball team. Well, they don't have that. So now he's got to play. So now it becomes even more of an issue because Coach Kerr is going to try to figure out ways to. But I don't like, this is a huge game. And being in that first spot in playoffs versus the second spot is huge. The path you have to take, it's the path of least resistance to winning a championship. So I want to see a great game.
In Kerr's defense, if they go into the NBA Finals and win it, no one's going to remember they didn't play this game. And no one's going to care either.
And that's part of being a coach.
It is what it is. You got to do what you got to do.
That's right.
24% from three is what Steph has shot over the last 7 games. Last season, he shot 45%.
It'll get better.
On threes.
It'll get better.
Brad, appreciate the time, man.
Yes.
Last week on this very show, you told us, look, the Warriors could be in trouble here. The Spurs, if Golden State doesn't get the Steph Curry they got last year, will be caught by the Spurs.
Absolutely.
Steph, over his last 75 three-pointers, this number stunned me today. 16 of his last 75. That's sub 25%. What's going on?
I saw this last year as they got into the playoffs, and I talked about, and Steph was nicked up. He had the knee and the ankle stuff going on, but he started struggling shooting the basketball just a little bit. You saw a little bit of fatigue in his jump shot, and I think it looks like it has carried over. Now, with Kevin Durant, boy, he covers up a lot of ills in your basketball team because he's one of the great players. And Steph was shooting a better percentage. But when it goes back to him, he needs to be a playmaker, and his shot just looks like it's a little bit off. And obviously the numbers tell the story. He's not shooting the ball as well. Neither is Klay, even though Klay shot it pretty well last night. As a whole, it was just unbelievable what they did last year shooting the basketball. And it started to leak a little bit as they got into the playoffs, and it's carried over. This basketball team is a jump shooting basketball team. They've gotten rid of their rim protection in Bogut, Spates, and Ezeli. And Kevin Durant was that guy. Well, he's gone now. So they're a lesser team they were last year, and you can see the struggles. I can see this coming, and they're going to have a difficult time.
We see Steph hit so many big shots, particularly at the end of the first quarter, second quarter, or third quarter.
It was unbelievable.
But he had a chance to win last night's game.
His rhythm is off.
His miss now, Brad, he's 0 for 5 in potential game winners at the buzzer.
They get home, though, get him a little bit of rest. I think he can get back to being spectacular. He looks fatigued.
All right. Kawhi Leonard also out tonight for the Spurs. He's in the league's concussion protocol. Brad, thanks.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, this just into SportsCenter. Kawhi Leonard is in the concussion protocol and is not expected to play Saturday against Golden State. Now, keep in mind, while San Antonio lost last night to Russell Westbrook and OKC, they just erased a 28-point deficit, albeit against the Kings, without Kawhi and LaMarcus Aldridge. So no Kawhi Leonard for that showdown in San Antonio on Saturday, which is good news for the Warriors because remember when the Spurs waxed the Warriors, I believe it was on opening night, was it 29 points? Should San Antonio win tomorrow night, it would clinch the regular season series and give them the tiebreaker.
Right.
How worried should the Warriors be about the number 1 seed with San Antonio full 2 games back now? Just 2 games back.
I guess the word worry, to focus on that for a second, all of it depends on whether or not, and I have a feeling they don't think this way, because why would they have this mentality that they need the 1 seed to win the title?
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
You need 4 All-Stars and the 1 seed?
Right, exactly. They shouldn't theoretically need the 1 seed to do that. But the other side of it, though, Mike, is that, look, they gave us a loose timetable for when Kevin Durant is coming back. It's still probably beyond that timetable going to take him a little bit to just work himself back in, having been rested.
Sure.
So there is a part of you that wonders, like, okay, will the comfort of a 1 seed, will that mean a little bit more to them given the situation that they're in? I tend to think that they don't need it.
They shouldn't.
But I understand why in this position that they're in, why that's some cause for concern. It's more about the way that they're playing. And look,
exactly.
It was expected to be some drop-off when you lose a player like Kevin Durant, especially you've gone this long playing with him.
And sacrifice the depth that you had last
Correct.
year.
So there was some expected struggle, but coming off having a season low in points, like the struggles on offense, I think that's a little bit more perplexing in some respects.
Well, everything revolved around Durant once they got him, and now that he's out, their rotations are all off, and their shots just off. Both Clay and Steph. And they're not making 3-pointers right now. So it's an adjustment period. And by the time they finally maybe figure it out without him, maybe he's back. And then we probably relearning things and trying to get in the playoff mode. Again, I'm sorry. If they don't get the number 1 seed, they don't get a pass for not coming out of the West.
And even not having Kevin Durant for this stretch, people aren't going to give him a pass for that either.
If Kevin Durant is compromised, I don't like them to win the West. But if Kevin Durant is healthy and they don't have home court throughout the Western Conference playoffs, so what?
Right.
You won at OKC. Oh, excuse me, you won at home against OKC. Sorry. What I was trying to say was they had home court in Game 7 of the finals, and we all know how that worked out. The internet doesn't let you forget how that works out.
Right.
So ultimately, the one you would like to have ideally is Game 7 of the finals at home against Cleveland, even though you lost it. And they got a 9-game cushion right now on the Cavaliers. So that's the people that need to be worried about having the advantage over. San Antonio, with all due respect, if you have those 4 All-Stars, you should be able to beat them. Great teams win on the road. In fact, only 3 of the past 8 NBA champions had the best record during the regular season. So there's no excuse if you don't get the 1 seed. You need to rest players accordingly, get into some kind of rhythm. And if you're the 2 seed, so be it. Just be ready to rock and roll in the playoffs.